Should Manchester United still sign Jadon Sancho? So in this video I'm going to cover why Jadon Sancho is world class, a comparison between Sancho and other top level elite attackers, the reasons why I maybe wouldn't sign Sancho, and alternative clubs for Sancho to join should Manchester United decide not to sign him again. And at the end I'll give my verdict on whether I think that United should still sign Sancho given the cost and other options on the market. Cheap good quality football jerseys, go over to www.jerseyfifa.com, a link will be left in the description, and use code ATLANTISFOOTBALL for 5% off. So despite what Gareth Southgate thinks, Jadon Sancho is clearly England's best wide attacker, and even though he is just 21 years old, he can be thought of as a legitimate world-class talent, and here's why. So Sancho is best described as a winger when he plays on the right flank, holding his width a lot more than he does when he's on the left side when he drifts in field into the half spaces, playing more like an inside forward, and in this regard he's very stylistically similar to someone like Eden Hazard. Now when assessing how good an attacking midfielder is, there are three main areas to judge. These are obviously goal scoring ability, chance creating ability and ball progression. So let's first start with Sancho's creative metrics. So he has an expected assist rate of 0.36 per 90 minutes in the Bundesliga this season, the fifth most of any player in the league, whilst also completing 2.9 key passes per 90 minutes, also the fifth most in the league. When we look at his ball progression metrics, they are just as impressive. In terms of dribbles, he completes 3.3 per 90 minutes, the fourth most of any player in the league, whilst also completing 82 passes into the penalty area, the most of any player in the Bundesliga, and the 10th most in the whole of Europe. This also works out at 3.58 passes into the penalty area per 90 minutes. It's also important to point out that with 82 passes into the penalty area, this also ranks in the top 10 of every player in Europe's top 5 leagues, showing just how impressive Sancho is when it comes to these ball progression metrics. When it comes to his goal scoring metrics, it's fair to say that he's not at the same level as he is when it comes to creating chances or progressing the ball. He has a non-penalty XG rate of 0.26 per 90, which is fairly decent, and he has scored 7 non-penalty goals from a total non-penalty XG of 6, which is an overperformance of exactly 1 goal, which is fairly decent for an attacking midfielder. So we can clearly see from Jadon Sancho's statistics that he is producing top level output, but when judging whether United should make a move for him this summer, we need to also compare him to other players in his age group who are also considered top level attacking midfielders. The three that I think best fit this are Serge Gnabry, Phil Foden and Leroy Sané. I've put together a table of stats from each player's 2020-2021 domestic league seasons so that you can easily compare each player's creative, ball progressing and goal scoring metrics. When it comes to chance creating metrics, we can see that Gnabry and Sancho are clear of Foden and Sané, both have an expected assist rate over 0.35 per 90, suggesting that these two both have created better quality of chances than the other two. Whilst Gnabry has a higher XA than Sancho, Sancho has recorded significantly more key passes, so I think Sancho probably just edges Gnabry in the chance creating department, particularly when you also consider that Gnabry was at league champions Bayern Munich last season and Sancho was at third place Dortmund, which does play a small part. When it comes to ball progression, Sancho is clearly the best of the four by some way. He completes the most dribbles, slightly more than Leroy Sané and significantly more than Gnabry. And when it comes to passes into the penalty area, not only is Sancho playing double the amount that Sané and Foden are, but he, as I have said before, ranks 10th in this metric out of every player in Europe's top 5 leagues and records the most in the whole of the Bundesliga. So when it comes to moving the ball up the pitch into dangerous positions, Sancho is without doubt elite. However, the goal scoring department is certainly the area that Sancho can improve. He has the lowest non-penalty XG per 90 rate of the 4 players, though this is heavily influenced by the fact that he plays for Borussia Dortmund, so obviously receives less chances, whilst the other 3 play for either Manchester City or Bayern Munich, 2 teams who were probably the best 2 attacking sides in the whole of Europe last season. Finishing wise, Gnabry and Foden are both better than Sancho at the moment, and we can see this as statistically both are overperforming their non-penalty XG rates by more than 2 goals, whereas Sancho overperforms his by 1 goal, which is still impressive and shows that he is scoring more goals than you would expect from the chances he has received. However, if he is to truly become one of the 2 or 3 best wide attackers in the world, both his non-penalty XG rate and his overperformance of that rate needs to improve, which he is on track to do as he's only 21 at the moment. So I think I've proven the point that Sancho is not just an up and coming young talent, but that he's already one of the best wide creators in all of Europe. However, there are some reasons why United maybe shouldn't sign Sancho this summer. Despite the fact that he's obviously pushing for a move and that he has just 2 years left on his contract, it seems like Dortmund will demand a fee of at least £90 million. Now this shouldn't be a problem for United, but for the fact that the Glazers have a history with not doing the business that they need to do in a transfer window. If we look at their spending patterns over the past few summers, we can see a problem that could rear its head yet again. Last summer United spent £75 million gross. In 2019 that number was £155 million, with Bruno Fernandes also being signed later that season in January for £50 million, taking the total season spend to just over £200 million. In 2018 the number was £75 million, and in 2017 it was £178 million. Now this summer United need to be bringing in a centre-back, an offensive upgrade on Wan-Bissaka, a central midfielder along with a wide attacker like Sancho. If we assume that the Glazers would be willing to spend £200 million, as they did the season before last, which is a massive assumption, then after signing Sancho, United would have around £110 million to spend on 3 or 4 players. Now it is feasible to do some very good business with this sort of budget, but if the Glazers decide to have a repeat of last season and don't want to spend anywhere upwards of £150 million, then United may have to abandon a Sancho transfer as the fee is too large and would leave them without necessary available funds to improve other areas of the side that also need to be upgraded. Another reason United should not pursue this transfer maybe is because of the better value alternatives on the market. United need a wide attacking midfielder who possesses a dribbling and creative ability that they currently lack from the right side. Sancho would likely cost in excess of £90 million, maybe as much as £100 million, but if we look at the players that would likely cost less than half of that, £50 million, then we can start to see some great value in players who look a lot better value for money in the grand scheme of things. I think that both Rafinha at Leeds and Matías Pereira at West Brom would be excellent options for United, with both proving they were amongst the Premier League's top 10 creators last season, with Rafinha recording the 3rd highest expected assist rate in the league with 0.36 per 90, behind only Grealish and Kevin De Bruyne, whilst also completing the 8th most key passes of any player who played more than 1,200 minutes with 2.4 per 90. Matías Pereira does sit further back with an expected assist rate of 0.22 per 90, but this is still a hugely impressive rate considering he was playing for relegated West Brom and recorded the same rate that Harry Kane did at Tottenham. Pereira also sits just below Rafinha in regards to key passes as well, completing 2.1 per 90. So these two have proved that there is great value for money available in the market, with Rafinha likely costing around £50 million to sign and Pereira maybe around £35 million. But even outside the Premier League there are some great options as well. Rodrigo de Paul is a player I really like, and you can listen to my short form podcast discussing 3 underrated attacking creators where I talk about de Paul statistically analysing him to show how good he actually is. There are also players like Pedro Neto, Moussa Diaby, Christopher Nkunku, Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Dani Olmo, who are all very good options at a much cheaper price than the fee that Dortmund would demand for Sancho, so we can see that this isn't an all or nothing situation. If United feel the price is too high for Sancho, then they do have a few other options that could solve that right winger problem in their starting 11. I do think that Sancho is still United's best option, but only if they are willing to bring in other players after Sancho. There is no point signing Sancho for £90 million if you are then going to neglect the right back, centre back and central midfield positions. So if United were to decide that they no longer wanted to make the Sancho deal, what are Sancho's other options and who should stump up the cash for him? So another Premier League club that should definitely be pursuing Sancho is Liverpool. Klopp's side need 1 if not 2 attackers brought in who can play in their narrow front 3. Sancho will be able to fulfill this role, playing from the left of the front 3, coming in for Sadio Mane. Sancho isn't as good in terms of his movement in behind the back line and creating chances for himself as Mane is, but the Dortmund man is a superior progressor of the ball and chance creator. He's able to play from the left side, dropping into the half space and working in tandem with the overlapping Robertson to connect down the channel, drawing opposition players out of position to then create spaces for each other's movement. Sancho with the right instructions and preparation could also be deployed as a false 9 if needed. He would be an improvement on Firmino and would bring the dribbling ability to progress the attack quickly, receiving the ball between the lines of the opposition system. Liverpool could afford a £90 million transfer, so if they can do this deal, I think they should pursue it as long as it's viable. Real Madrid is another club that should be pursuing Sancho. Los Blancos need a complete revamp in their attack, and with it looking likely that they will shelve plans till next summer to bring in Mbappe and Haaland, they do need at least 1 attacker to be brought in. Sancho would be perfect not just for next season but for the long term as well. Immediately he'd walk into Madrid's side and be the best advanced creator at the club. Hazard has significantly dropped off his output from when he was at Chelsea, Asensio is in and out of the side with injury, and players like Rodrigo and Vinicius cannot be considered top level at the minute, so signing Sancho would be a very good move for Madrid. He could play from either flank. On the left he would play the same role as Hazard, drifting in field and looking to pick up the ball in behind the midfield, from where he can then look to create. On the right he would hold his width a lot more, which would certainly be useful, especially if Sancho and Carvajal behind him at right back could work out a good understanding and coordination down the right flank. Madrid are now managed under Carlo Ancelotti, so if you want to see my thoughts on Ancelotti's appointment, I did do a 5-minute podcast a few weeks back talking about the situation, so I'll leave that linked in the description. Sancho would cost £90 million plus, but Madrid definitely have the funds to bring in a Galactico this summer, and in 2022, when they look to bring in Mbappe and Haaland, Real would arguably have created the best front three in world football, with all three under the age of 23 as well. Chelsea are another team that should be keeping their options open with Sancho. They are stacked in the attacking midfield position, from Mount and Havertz to Ziyech and Pulisic, but I do think that Sancho would be an improvement on all four of them. Pulisic would probably have to be offloaded, and he could probably raise around £40 million from the transfer fee. In Tuchel's 3-4-3 system, Sancho would be playing ahead of Jorginho and Kante, with either Ziyech, Mount or Havertz playing next to him. He would cost a huge proportion of Chelsea's summer transfer budget, but Chelsea's squad is relatively strong after last summer's transfer acquisitions, so they don't need major surgery in other positions. If you want to check out which positions and players I would bring in at Chelsea this summer, then go to the description below or the eye above, because I will be leaving the full Chelsea transfer series linked as a playlist. So overall, United should still be signing Sancho and should have the funds to improve other areas, as I've spoken about. But if the Glazers are planning to only spend say £150 million or less, then signing a cheaper Sancho alternative is the only real option available, as if Solskjaer is to build a squad capable of challenging for the title next season, he can't just be looking to improve one or two positions. He needs to be looking to improve the right back spot, centre back, central midfield, and at least one attacking midfielder as well. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that video, remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you haven't already, so you get notified when my videos come out. Also check out some of my other videos which will be linked in the description below. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram for more content as well, and give the video a like and put your thoughts in the comment section below.